Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malacara.
Hi, and welcome to an episode of That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara. That'd be me. And today is a very special, like every other day. Honestly, they're all special days, but today is especially special. Yes, especially special because it is the first episode of our second season of That's What She Said. So that hard reset, we all did it and we're moving forward and so excited to do so. We have a great lineup of guests for this second season, and we're also always looking for more. So if there's someone who has inspired you, a woman who just really just lit that fire inside of you and you're moving forward, or if you're that person and everyone keeps telling you, hey, you're a great leader, girlfriend, give us a call, email us, send us a message, let me know. And then we can have a conversation. And then that conversation might actually go on air. So ways to contact us here on the Facebook page, on my email address. And then always when you tune in, there are plenty of options on WSGW's website on ways to get a hold of us. So I was in the moment of reflecting, and I like to start at That's What She Said days with that kind of reflection that I had done from the week prior. And I feel like there's a lot of people in my life who are in a point of their lives where you just are satisfied on where you're at. You're like, hey, things are going pretty well right now. Or maybe they're not going as well as you planned, but you're just like, this is day one, you know? We're good here. We're good here. Good things are going to happen the next day and the next day. And then you keep adding on to that, right? So be happy where you are today because it's a good day. Because That's What She Said day. And we have a wonderful guest with us. This person is so near and dear to my heart. We just figured out that we have been friends for more than half of our lives. So if you have a girlfriend who you just like, that's your girl, right? You've known them for so long. Send them the YouTube video, send them the link, send them the Spotify, and tell them that you appreciate them because I sure do appreciate our guest today. Miss Tara Welch. When I knew her, she had a different last name. But needless to say, here's Tara. Hi,
Yeah.
Tara.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Why is it that you're doing so great today? What is new today?
What is new today is I officially am the president and CEO for The Rock. So my promotion is today. We've been working towards this for the past 6 to 7 months, and it's been a lot of fun training and getting to where I needed to be. But now that it's finally here, it's nice. It's a nice sense of accomplishment.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is The Rock?
The Rock is a center for youth development. We do programming with kids starting in 6th grade all the way up to post-secondary, and we do a lot of different leadership skill development. We focus on developmental assets and how to build those in our youth so we can raise and have these kids be really independent when they get older and be a great part of society.
Where's this located?
We're located in Midland and now at Delta College. We just opened not yet. So on January 6th, we open our new site, and then we're across the whole state, right? We work with different teachers. We travel around. We've trained people in Florida. We've trained people in Texas. We've really made a big impact around, but office wise, we're in Midland.
Great. I have been there, and it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat dynamic space.
Yeah,
Outside and maybe before The Rock, how is it that the community knew you? Because you've been pretty community involved for quite some time.
Yes. So the community originally probably met me through Studio 23 in Bay City. That's where I really learned that whole phrase, community development, and what is that? I was able to start my job there teaching art, which is was a huge passion of mine, and I would say still is. I think that's incredibly important for people to be creative, right? So I started there and just got involved with anything and everything I possibly could. Anything that I thought would better myself and better the organization, I like jumped in headfirst and said yes. So probably know me from there.
How long were you there?
9 years.
Wow. And what was your ending role there?
Executive director.
Those are big titles.
Yeah.
And I have to say, you mentioned being creative.
Mhm.
How has creativity played a role in your life, moving through your career?
Yeah. I feel like being creative when you're running a nonprofit organization is extremely important, right? Because we don't want to be the same old thing every single day. We need to continue to reinvent ourselves and think of new things we can do and new ways to implement our mission. So being creative helped me think outside the box and be able to take risks, because when you're creative, you're going to try something until it works, right? Like even if you think about painting and quilting and all these different things, we keep experimenting. And I think with nonprofits, that's the same thing. We're experimenting. We're going to figure it out. We're going to try something new. If it doesn't work, shucks, but we'll get back up and we'll do it again.
When you're talking about nonprofits, it sounds like you've been in the nonprofit sector your entire career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have.
Have you ever not been?
A long time ago, I was working at Old Navy and I was one of their managers. So that was like my only really like corporate like job. Otherwise, it's been nonprofits.
So this nonprofit is instilled in you in a sense.
Mhm.
This is part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think it's because it's such a sense of service, right? And I really think that nonprofits get created in our communities because there's a gap missing. And so to be a part of something that can fill a gap for our community and serve a need and serve our families is incredibly important. And that's what feels good to me, is like serving that need.
What is the gap that the Rock serves?
Oh, there's a couple gaps, but our overall gap, I would say, what we're known for here in this region is our out of school time programming. So that gap for families of your kids, yeah, maybe they're old enough to go home, but do you really want them home by themselves, or do you want them socializing with their friends and working towards their academics and being with a community? And so that's what we serve for the Rock. We serve that in-between space where we can support families and take care of their children while they can finish their workday, and then they can come grab them before they go home.
What is that dynamic for you working with youth? I'm comparing it to working in an art studio.
Yeah.
What was there youth involvement in the art studio? Was there youth? I mean, how does that look?
Yeah. So when I started at the art studio, I was teaching the kids classes. So I was always with the kids, and that is always exciting for me because I think education is another part of my background that's really important. That's how I started my career, right? I was teaching. I taught K through 4 art. I taught at any facility that would let me come in and teach independent classes. And so I was just like independent teacher that ran around. And with the kids at the studio, it was so much fun. And it was really hard for me to give up that component when I moved into more of the director role. But I knew something had to give. And that was a way that we could support. Actually, it ended up being another student from SVSU that came over and taught the kids classes. So it was a great opportunity to give someone else that magic of teaching, right? So then when I went to the Rock, I felt like it was a way for me to reconnect to that like childhood education and to really focus on that part. And so I've gone in a couple times to do art lessons with the kids. It's a lot of fun. Just go in and kind of be around them and like have that energy. And it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Art is fun.
It is.
So let's talk about art and your formal education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do those two play together?
So my formal education is from Saginaw Valley State University, go Cards. I have a bachelor's in art and a bachelor's in history. So originally I thought, well, I'll go on to teach. I was going to, I knew that teaching in a public school probably wasn't for me. I was thinking more like museum and like galleries and figuring out how to teach within those private sectors. And then I ended up at the studio, which changed my career a little bit, but that's okay. I think those are supposed to happen. But what I've learned today in my strengths is that I do love to learn. And that's why I love history so much. So when I was taking art classes, you have to take art history. You know this. We have to take so many art history classes to get your degree. Well, then I just kept taking more history classes on the side. And pretty soon I only needed like 4 extra history classes to graduate with my degree in history. And I was like, yeah, let's slap on another bachelor's.
Oh my goodness.
So that's what I did.
The way I know Tara is very much a I don't know how to say this, an overachiever. Yeah, but in the best ways possible. The best ways possible. So you're like, okay, 4 more credits, why not? We'll have 2 bachelors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
I mean, when you're there that long, it's not that much extra.
no, not at all. just more school. Yeah. So that passion of learning.
Yes.
Where do you think that came from?
My parents. My mom is an educator and my dad is a social worker. And throughout, I would say my whole life, they were always learning new things. And I saw them like taking classes and taking seminars and being involved with the community in different ways. And I think that does trickle down to your children. And then also when we think about art and learning art, there was many times where I would paint with my grandfather. And I have a few of those paintings hanging in my house that we painted together. So just thinking about that, like art was really ingrained in my life. And then from my dad's side, I would say like really artistic. And then my mom's side is she was very, focused on education. And so those 2 passions kind of like combined for me.
Great. A go-getter. A go-getter with thick skin.
Yeah. And I'm the oldest child.
Oh, well, there we go.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so much that goes along with that in itself.
Yes,
okay.
there is. Yes.
Okay. So you're the oldest child. How many siblings do you have?
I have 3. I have 2 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say you're a community leader. You have been for some time. As a community leader, what does that look like in your family dynamic with that your parents and your siblings? Like, how do they take that in?
I just feel like with my family, I'm just Tara though.
Yeah.
They know what I do and they're very supportive of what I do. I always thought it'd be kind of fun someday to have like my siblings come to work with me. 'Cause when you say that you run a nonprofit, I don't think people can get their minds wrapped around what you do every day. It's just different. I'm not going in. I'm not like a shift worker that I go in and punch the clock. And I'm also not a worker that someone sets my schedule for me. So sometimes it's hard for people to visualize like what you do. So I always thought that would be interesting. So maybe they'll take me up on that someday. But yeah, with family, I think I'm just Tara, when I tell my grandma what's going on, I'm very close with my grandparents. And when I call her and I tell her like, hey, just want to let you know I'm getting promoted. And she just, oh, geez, another thing, like she's also retired. So she gets to, they have
enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just funny because, I would say they're very proud of me, but it's, I don't know. I'm just Tara around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're able to put that guard down, take off that hat and just relax.
Yeah.
So, okay. You're describing a lot of things that the foundation of this is basically like self-motivation. Am I on track with that?
Yeah, I would say that. I really feel that everything I've worked towards, I've done myself, definitely with the support of my husband and my family behind me. No one's ever told me, no, you can't do that, like within my immediate circle, right? But I like to keep things to myself when I'm doing things. So for example, like when I was interviewing for the CEO role, I didn't tell anybody but my husband just because I don't know, you kind of have to tell him, but like
That's your person.
I didn't tell anybody else. I was like, I'm just going to do this. This is like for me. And I really started having that mindset probably around 25, that when I was going to work towards something really hard, I was going to do it for myself, and I keep it to myself until I'm happy with my accomplishment, and then I'll share it with other people.
The age 25.
Probably, yeah. I want to
Probably
say
around then.
probably around 25. That's when I started to get like that.
I personally feel that's pretty young
Yeah.
to feel like I'm going to work towards this.
Yeah.
And it's a big, hefty goal.
Mm-hmm.
What was that switch for you that where you're like, you know what? I'm gonna work towards things for the sake of me.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Mm-hmm. I don't really know what the shift was when I'm thinking about it, but I just decided that whatever I wanted to do, right? And when I was 25, I was already executive director, by the way. I was 23, almost 24 when I got promoted. I was like a month away from turning 24. So at that time in my career, I didn't tell anybody how old I was. I was terrified of that. I was like, no one can know how old I am because they're going to doubt me because I'm too young. Right.
Okay.
And so I would say that's like a really general statement of what people think, right? Like I thought personally, I was like, oh, I wouldn't be an executive director until I'm 40. I thought that didn't happen until you were older. But the opportunity came about at the studio, and took advantage of that. It was actually my husband who I told him, I was like, hey, yeah, the director's retiring. She told me today. And he was like, oh, you're going to apply for that job? And I said, no. And he was like, oh, no, you're going to apply for that job. And so then when I think about that and his confidence in me, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to apply for that job. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. You know,
because you're an art major. You're going to figure it out.
I think that's a great skill from art school, is you just figure it out.
You do. You truly do. Okay. So you're 25. You're like, I'm applying for this job. Bam. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you stayed in that position for a while while growing a nonprofit, while growing this company. Getting up and knowing that the weight of this organization is on your shoulders. Who was it that you leaned on at that time?
I had a lot of great mentors on that board that I leaned on. Kelly and Sarah and Jerry and Dave and Lynn and Wanda, Fran, there's so many of them that I became friends with, and I would talk to them and say like, hey, what do you think about this? Can we try this? Like, I have this idea. And I will say that board of directors could not have been more perfect for me, because they let me try new things, and they let me fail, and they believed in me. And so when you have a backing of people like that, and I think even if as we serve on boards, like, to be supportive of the staff in that way was so empowering to me, that really helped me stay motivated, because I knew I could try to do it.
That's huge. And for our listeners who are tuning in, we have Tara Welch here with us from The Rock, and we're talking about women empowerment specifically. So moving into leadership roles and having that backing of the board, if a listener is tuned in and just saying, how can I create that connection? What advice would you give them?
Get to know your board members. Take them out for coffee, take them out for lunch, whatever works for your schedule, but get to know them and understand their passion for being on the board and why they want to be involved. And then you can use that as your way into them to say, hey, let's say they really love taking classes, right? That's why they want to serve on the board, because they love taking classes. Well, then ask them their opinions. Like, what do you think of this class? Are you liking the structure? What's your dream class that would come to this organization? What can we do to get that here? And just become friends with them. And it's more too than the passion of why they're on their board. It's their personal life too. Like, I loved hearing about my board members when, I got to be around a lot of my board members in the beginning when they had kids. I got to be around when they had grandkids and when they got to celebrate retirements. So being able to celebrate those things too and have fun and celebrate it with the whole board, because it was also really important for me that the board members weren't only friends with me, but they were friends with their other board members that were there. And so having that like really strong engagement, and I feel we did a really good job with that.
Well, because the board members there out of volunteerism, correct? There's passion.
Yes.
There's passion involved.
Yep.
So, having that streamline of, aligning your passion, their passion, the task that needs to, operate and, the task that needs to be accomplished at hand. It's teamwork, right? So
It is.
Was there ever a time that you had to deeply lean on someone, if it's in a work atmosphere or personal, to get through a tough time?
Like a tough time personally? Or
I would say
time
through work.
through work. Okay.
Yeah, professionally.
Yeah. We went through a renovation at the studio, and that was tough. We had to come up with some pretty innovative ideas on how to continue our work while we were closed for renovation. So we leaned on people in the community to offer space to us so we still could have classes. But there was a couple things with the renovation that overall it went like real smooth, but there was this one thing with the floors.
Okay.
And we were like real upset about the floors. And I felt like there was a whole bunch of people telling me what floors to pick, and I didn't want to pick those floors because I didn't like it. And I had my board chair come in with me. And then we also had a project manager, and his name was Dave. And I never told him this, but I was just really impressed with him that he knew I was uncomfortable, and he knew I didn't like the options that were being given to me. But I had pressure to pick the floors because we needed to open within a certain amount of time. So we had like a couple weeks. It was like we were down to the crunch. And he brought in one of his female coworkers with him to help like be like the voice behind me as well. And I just like really appreciated that, because that was a really hard moment of being indecisive, not knowing what to do, knowing that like the floors you pick are a big deal because they're going to stay there for years, right? We were never going to redo the floors in like 5 years, right? They have to stay. So it was a really heavy decision with a lot of things wrapped into it. And so just having that support of my board chair, Sarah, at the time coming in, and then Dave bringing his coworker, I was like, wow, he listened and he paid attention. And I didn't even have to ask him. He just like stepped up and did it. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome that like he was in tune to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just that little story you shared, for our listeners, metaphorically taking that a little out of terms, and, someone who has to make a tough decision that is going to stick for a while.
Yeah.
It's important to surround yourself with people that are equally as in tune to the heaviness of that decision too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you say like it was just picking out floor, it sounds kind of silly, but it's like, no, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal picking out what floors people would walk on.
Well, there's so many decisions that we need to navigate through where there's, this is the decision, we need to call it soon, but there's several options, right? And it's important who we share it with, and if we even do share it, right?
Yep. That's true.
Don't agree with me with everything, Tara. It's okay.
I won't. I'll stop.
There we go. And that's what happens when you just when you have good friends for more than half of your life. Oh, well, we are going to finish up this interview with Tara Welch from The Rock in the second half of That's What She Said. So stay tuned. We will be right here waiting for you.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
Hi, welcome back to the second half of That's What She Said. We are back with Tara Welch, and she is going to spill the tea on women empowerment. I know, I love the expression spill the tea. And on women empowerment. And we just covered how women empowerment in general, creating a network is so important in the work environment. And she touched on it a little bit at home. But in this second portion, we are going to talk a little bit more about Tara herself, what fills her cup and what keeps her going in doing all these amazing things that you've been doing for years now. So I know, but would you like to share? What is something that you do, Tara, that fills you up and keeps you moving forward?
I'm a big reader. That definitely fills my cup. I'm always reading something all the time. So that fills my cup. I really enjoy that. And then what's new that fills my cup, and this is new within the past couple of years, is gardening, and just being home and learning how to slow down and to enjoy my house. So we moved a couple years. No, not even a couple of years ago. It's been a year since we moved, and I've just been really enjoying that, enjoying settling in and being outside and wandering around.
My listeners will ask me later, okay, she reads what? What are some favorite books that you might recommend, especially to women who are going to pick up a book and say, Tara recommended this one?
Professional development wise, the favorite one I read in 2024 was Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. It was an excellent book. And it was a lot about how to pace yourself at work, how to prioritize how many projects are on your plate, and ways that you can support your staff in how many projects. It's really easy when we start planning the new year to put 20 items on the board and we're going to do all of this right now, right? And he really breaks it down and says, no. Let's think about your 3 top priorities and then let's work on those. And then when one of those priorities comes off, we can add another one on top, right? And I really like that mindset of having 3 focus areas in work and at home too, though. And so it made me start thinking about my personal life and what are my 3 areas of focus for my personal life. So Slow Productivity by him was a really great book, and he has a couple other really good ones. And then my favorite cookbook. So I read cookbooks like books, and I read everything. I read the intro, I read the whole thing. And my favorite cookbook was called The Perfect Loaf. I got really into making sourdough. And if you really want to get technical with your sourdough, that's the book to do it with. It was really in depth. It was pretty good.
Get technical with your sourdough. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say,
it's a science. It's a science. And so that was really a great book for me to read. That was fascinating. I read a couple other cookbooks this year. And then I would say my favorite fun book, I had a really hard time picking my favorite. I call it my fun book, because I read so many good books this past year. I read about a book a week. My favorite book was The Unmaking of June Farrow. And I forgot the author's name, but the book I just felt she was in such a struggle her whole life. She's in this struggle trying to figure it out. What do you do? And it's talking about family issues and being passed down from generation to generation. And I feel at the end, she became her own heroine. And I just really like that. And I feel that we all should be our own heroines, and we should, be our own champion for ourselves. And I felt that book concluded like that. And so that was a really good book. And it's a little bit magical and fantasy too in it, but that one was really good.
If someone were to, or if you were to write a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Oh gosh. That should have been a question I could have thought about it.
While you're thinking about it, I just want to say the hero, being your own hero. That's a running theme for a lot of these interviews, and That's What She Said. You have to learn to self-advocate for yourself, and go up to bat for yourself before you can ask anyone else too. So if you had to title a book about you, would it be about sourdough?
No, it would not be. Actually, I think that I would have the title be creating impactful relationships, and that's even like my like slogan on LinkedIn right now. I feel that in my personal life and my work life, like those impactful relationships are what's important and what you think about all the time.
How do you find an impactful relationship?
You have to go out and search for it.
Where?
So, everywhere. So I put myself on a mission when I graduated college. And so now I'll just go back and then I'll tell you a more recent story that I made myself go out on friend dates. So my husband and I, we were married, graduated college. And when you're not going to school with those people every single day, and you start working in a job, like your friendship circle changes. And what I've learned is your friendship circle changes throughout the years all the time, and that's okay, right? So I was like really looking for like new ways to make new friends. And so I like put myself out there and started going out on friend dates. And that was really successful. And I feel like that's happened to me again recently, that my friendship circle is changing a little bit, trying to figure out, I know who my close friends are. I know who they are. We get together quite a bit. But in the work aspect, I'm not in the same like work circle I used to be in. I'm in a new one. And so like, who are my friends now in this new circle? And so I had a brunch. And you came and it was really fun.
I did.
But I had a brunch.
Let's just say those cookbooks are being they're being read, and they she's doing wonderful. I encourage reading cookbooks. Yeah. Okay, so we had a brunch.
So I had a brunch, and what I did is I invited a couple people that I've been friends with for a while, and that like I really appreciate their friendship and wanted them to come over. And then I invited a few people that I really wanted to get to know better. And that brunch like overfilled my cup. It was so much fun, and I just felt like everyone was so positive and so nice and so kind to each other. And I was like, oh, I want to have one of these every week, And so now I'm like in that stage again of like finding those impactful relationships and reaching out to people and not being afraid to be like, hey, do you want to go get a cup of tea? And in this instance, I said, hey, do you want to come over to my house? Mm-hmm. I know I don't know you that well, but I'm a good cook and I'd like you to come over so we can, say hi.
I think that so going back to this, this brunch, mm-hmm. I walked in not knowing anyone except for you.
Yeah.
And I walked out with everyone's LinkedIn, everybody's Instagram, everybody's Facebook. And those are some pretty cool women.
Yes.
So
they are.
What you did essentially was create your own circle.
Mm-hmm.
And was that something that were you nervous about it? Was it something where you're like, oh, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, because a lot of the listeners that we encounter are, what can I do to add more and better quality to my empowering circle?
Mm-hmm. I felt like that's something I had to go into, that if only one person showed up, it was a success. If 5 ladies showed up, it was awesome. It was something that I go into that I'm just, whatever happens, and that's okay. So I think you have to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. And some of the people I invited, they had other commitments and they weren't able to come. No big deal. I'd still like to get together with you some other time, So for that one, I think there was 6 of us. Mm-hmm. And I thought, the perfect amount of people. And it was just really good. I just thought to myself, I was like, I'm going to try it and it'll be okay.
Switching gears a little bit, you said that you got a new house and you're enjoying it.
Yes.
So some of us call that just enjoying our mortgage on the weekends, right? Yeah. What are some of those things that you're doing to make your safe space, your home, mm-hmm. more of a home? Mm-hmm. With the line of work that you have, it's very fun, mm-hmm. right? But with this new role that you got today, mm-hmm. There's going to be just an added component to it. Mm-hmm. What is something that you're doing at home that really just decompresses you?
Mm-hmm. So a decompressing for me is actually cooking. I know. So I cook. I come home and like preparing dinner, that's like my wind down. And Brent and I do that together sometimes. Sometimes I just cook. Sometimes he just cooks. It just depends on who has that availability and capacity to do so. And so that's my decompressant. And lately it's also been with my chickens, which sounds hilarious because they're so funny.
We have another chicken lady. We've had a chicken lady in the past.
So they are so fun. And so I come home, I get the dogs, we go straight outside. The dogs run around the backyard. I go check on the chickens, make sure they're good. Usually they run up to me because they want their treats. They're very like treat motivated.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, true, very true. And so that's just really fun for me to be outside. I've always been a big nature person. I've always loved being outside, but that I get to do that in my home with woods all around me is just really like relaxing and special.
It sounds like you have a pretty set routine.
I am a routine person.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You said that with a lot of confidence.
I am, because I like routines, which is kind of funny for a creative person. But there are specific things when I get ready for the day and when I come home for the day that have to be the same.
We're going to unpack this because as many people are doing this time of the year is starting you know, a new me kind of version, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been doing some reading on routines, and they're just it's good to do, but also as an art major, routines are just, it's not in my forte. I can't wrap my mind around it. But okay, so unpack your routines for us. And why is it so important to have a routine?
For me, my routine, it's very important for me to make sure that I am fueled and ready for the day, and that I've taken care of my household responsibilities. So, and household means like my animals, making sure they're good, and making sure my house is good before I leave for the day. Now, that does not mean my house is like clean before I leave or come home, but it means that everybody is like happy and fed and safe and we're good to go. So, and my routine changes from a work day to a weekend. So my work days, you know, I wake up, I let the dogs out immediately. I feed them and take care of them. I make my tea, and I have like my tea time where I sit down and relax at the kitchen table, have a little bite to eat, maybe journal for a little bit or read something for a little bit. But I'm like pokey in the morning, so I have to have a routine because I have to have a block of time that I know I can poke around.
Okay, so here's a question.
Okay.
When did you realize that you were a pokey person? So I'm defining pokey person as you need a slow start.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When did you figure that out?
I don't know. I don't know.
And you knew you needed structure for that, though.
I knew I needed structure for that once I had to be at work at a certain time. So, you know, like in college, I worked different shifts. You know, I'd work like a crazy like 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. or maybe I'd work like a noon to 9. So having a structure in that time of my life was really not available. But once I started having to be at work at a certain time every single day, that is really when the routine started like coming into play.
When you're journaling, what is it that you're putting out there?
I'm a gratitude journaler. So I do 3 things that I'm grateful for. And it helps just set that intention for the day to get me going, to like always remind myself what those 3 things are.
And you do this every day?
Not every day, but I will say I'm pretty consistent.
Why is that important to write down 3 things you're grateful for?
So that was something my grandmother told me in high school. And she told me that every day she would wake up and she would tell herself 3 things she was grateful for. And so when you're going through times of struggle, times of sadness, times of hard, difficult times, it's really important to remind yourself of those things that are really good in your life that you're grateful for. And so I started doing that, and I've just kept that like as a consistent thing in my life. And even if I don't write them down, it's still something that in my mind, I'm like reminding myself of what those things are. And they can be anything. Like, I think when people think about gratitude practice, they feel like it has to be this like grand thing. I'm so happy for my 500 friends or something like that. For me, my gratitude is I just really enjoyed sitting on the couch this morning with the dogs and having a warm cup of tea. And one thing I wrote down this morning is I'm so grateful that I had time off to relax and decompress before the new year started. So that it doesn't have to be, it can be big grand things, right? You should be grateful for those. But I really like to focus on those like little things during the day that make me really grateful.
You're breaking it down into smaller components.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a time where you really had to rely on, I have to write down these things to make me feel better about what's happening right now in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever like a stressful time where you're just like, this is tough, I need to chug through this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had some pretty tough times like everybody else, right? Experienced loss in my family that was really difficult. But the one moment was when I lost one of my really good friends in 2019. And that was a moment where I had to write down those gratitude things every single day because it was really hard because I didn't know how to grieve. And like working through that grief was really difficult for me because I didn't understand and didn't want to do it. It was one of those things where it was really scary. And so then you don't want to do it. Right. And so writing down that gratitude and like focusing on the things I was grateful for and focusing on her and I's relationship and like thinking about how, what a great friendship we had. And so like thinking about that and being grateful for that.
So this mindset of gratitude and positivity and empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
has that been a constant throughout your life, or did we build ourselves up to where we're at?
I don't know. I feel like I was always pretty confident growing up, and I feel like I wanted to always be a good role model for my brothers. We're kids, right? So I hope I was a good role model for them, but I felt like I always had to be a really good role model for them and that I could be like a constant in their life. So I always wanted to do well.
Why'd you feel that pressure?
I think that's just from being the oldest kid, my parents raised us, and our grandparents were so involved in our lives. Like we were so lucky. We had this like huge family that we were always with, and like so many memories of being with the family on the weekends. Like I think that's all we did was go to one of the grandparents' house, So, but I just feel like I just wanted, as the oldest sister, like kind of like set the tone,
Do you
and
think you
organize. I don't know if I did. I don't know. Both my brothers have careers that they really enjoy right now. So I think that is pretty cool because I think that there's so many different things we can do in life today that like there's not one career out there that makes you more successful than anybody else. I think it's really finding something you enjoy. And so when I talk to my brothers and talk to them about like, hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? Like, it always seems to me, and hopefully they feel this way, that like they're really having fun and they're enjoying what they do. And I think that's pretty cool.
Let's go back a step to this the professional development book, the self-help book that you had read, that you recommended.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about 3 projects in work and at home.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of those three projects you're focusing on personally?
Mm-hmm. So the 3 projects personally that I have been setting intentions for is to be more creative every day. And that could be reading something that makes me think of something different that's creative. It could be writing something down. It could be quilting, painting, whatever that is, like just spending like a moment a day to be creative. Moving my body. So whether it's really easy in the winter to be like, oh, I don't want to take the dogs for a walk, right? And to putting that accountability, like, no, like they need to go for a walk just as much as I do. So even if it's snowing or raining, like let's get our butts out there and let's go for a walk. So doing that, and then prepping my garden. So really focusing on the food I eat, what I'm putting in my body, and thinking about my garden and how to make it better than it was last year. It was the first year in the new house, so I learned some things, and I'm excited with what I learned to figure it out and make it better for this year.
Speaking of learning, what is something that you have learned new and fresh for this role that you're stepping into?
Oh, man. I have been learning much about developmental assets with our youth and what they mean. I heard of the term when I was taking my education classes at SVSU, but I'd never dove deep into it. Like it wasn't, I didn't get that far, right, in the education field, or classes, I should say. So just looking at those and thinking about how we can set our kids up for success and how many of our kids in our local area that don't have access to that has been really interesting to learn about and to figure out how we can, myself can help be a better asset to my organization by teaching our community what that means and how we can help.
Do you consider yourself to empower others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think there's moments in my career where I could have done that better. And I think that there's moments that I did it pretty good. But right now I've just been really focused on being the best leader that I can be to empower my team to make their own decisions and to feel confident in those choices when we're thinking about our programming. So another thing I've been learning more about is listening and how to be a better listener. So instead of leading, I don't want to lead with my mouth anymore, right? Like I want to lead with my ears and to support my team and be there for them in the right ways.
I've seen a thread through this interview of you talking about, I said it. I said self-motivation. But in each aspect of your life, there's been a point where you're like, we have to do this, as in we, as in you. You know, you're getting up and you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend for a woman who's just, they're in a slump,
mm-hmm.
and you know, you're over here like, come on, I'm cheering you on. What is something that you could tell them to get them out of that slump, to
Mm-hmm.
be more self-motivated?
I would bring it back to those gratitude. Is like when you're in the slump, you feel like nothing's going right and that the world's out to get you and you keep messing up and blah, 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 right? And those gratitude points will take you back to like focus on actually what's going good, because guaranteed your whole day was not bad. There was something in your day that went right. And so if you can focus on that one little thing that went right and start changing your mindset to focus on the good, you will take yourself out of that slump yourself. I feel that when we're in the slumps, we're doing it to ourselves because we have those bad thoughts going through our head. We're beating ourselves up. There's a whole bunch of studies out there about the thoughts in your head and how many are negative. And I think like it was like up to 80% of your thoughts were negative every day. And I was, when I read that stuff, I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. And there are times where I'm really hard on myself. And even every professional development review I've done with like my board and my team and stuff, and the comments that I've always received is, you are harder on yourself than anyone else is. And I'm like, well, yeah, I should be hard on myself because I want to be better and I want to like do better.
So you think it's okay to be hard on yourself?
I think it's okay to be hard on yourself, but I'm not mean to myself. I'm holding myself accountable so I can continue working on my goals and being better. So I'm not hard on myself in a mean way. I'm not knocking myself down. I'm hard on myself to say, you can get up and you can do the next thing better and try again.
That's an amazing piece of advice. Thank you so much for being on today, Tara. I appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what she said. Thank you, and we'll tune in. See you next week.